This is Matthew Nojosa, and I'm interviewing
Juan Flores.
on the 4th, 2615 at 11:57. We're going to start the questions. When and where were you born, Mr. Flores?
I was born on 29 August 1960 in Sinton, Texas.
Did anyone else in your family serve?
Yes, my oldest brother Lionel served in the Marines. He was a Vietnam vet. And then I had three other brothers, Agustin, Pete, and Andy, were all Air Force vets like myself.
And who in what branches?
Lionel was a U.S. Marine, and Pete, Andy, Augustine, and myself were U.S. Air Force.
Were you serving at the same time?
The last four served together. We were all in the Air Force at the same time.
How did your family feel when you joined?
My mom was very proud that we all joined. That we took advantage of that. We all did our time serving. I did 22 years in the Air Force.
What about your brothers? Do you know?
Pete retired at 24 years of service, and Andy served 10 years, and Augustine served 8 years, and Lionel served 4 years in the Marines. He ruptured his eardrum during battle, and he was medically discharged.
Sorry to hear that. Were you married in the military?
I was.
And was it hard to sustain a marriage long distance?
Extremely hard. Yes, I was gone. I was airborne, so I was gone a lot. I deployed a lot. So I was averaging about 4 to 5 months a year that I was gone. And I would leave my wife behind.
How did she feel about this at times?
Hard, because
Yeah.
when you're in the military, they you know that you're gonna have to travel and stuff. So you're ready for that. They train you for that, but they don't train your wife. She just has to learn as she goes and stuff. That's extremely difficult.
Did you ever have any kids?
I had 2 sons in my first enlistment. Those are my 2 boys, Joseph and John.
And how did they feel about it too?
They were very small at
Okay.
that time period.
And they were, motivated, they were proud of you.
John wound up serving 6 years as a pharmacist in the Air Force.
Okay. Father like son.
Sir.
What motivated you to enter the military?
What motivated me? Actually, it had nothing to do with actually being enthused with the Air Force. It was more financial. I was going to college. My father had passed away my senior year in high school. Remember, we didn't have any money, and I needed to find some way to go where I could also get my education, so I joined the Air Force. It was originally supposed to be a 6-year enlistment, but I fell in love with it, and I did 22 years.
God bless your soul to your father.
Thank you.
Were you happy with your decision to join as the time passed?
I did 6 years, Matthew, in the Air Force. I separated, and I immediately missed it. But the demand at the time to get back in was so hard that it took me almost 3 years to get back in, and I did 16 more years. So was I happy? I wasn't happy that I got out because that was not a good move on my part.
In what branch did you serve?
Air Force.
How was boot camp for you?
Boot camp was actually when I went through. I joined the Air Force in February of '79. Boot camp was actually 6 weeks, which at that time a lot of us were mama's boys and we were used to being wrapped around mama's waist. So it was tough for us to get away from home. But once you got past that, boot camp was actually, while we thought it was hard, it was actually not that hard. It was 6 weeks. The Air Force trains you more on what the requirements are and stuff, on discipline, on physical activity and things like that nature.
Do you remember any specific drill sergeants that gave you a hard time during?
Well, they all gave you a hard time, and things have changed now and stuff. Back then, they could be a little bit more physical with you, So I remember bouncing off a couple of walls. I remember picking myself off the ground a couple of times, and I remember that. I remember we would wake up at 5 in the morning. I was when Reveille would go off, and there was about 80 of us in our squadron in our flight. I'm sorry, in our flight, and we had about I think it was 120 seconds for all of us to wake up, take a shower, get dressed, and be downstairs in formation. You had 2 minutes, and you had to take a shower. 120 seconds. That was pretty magical.
And how long would you do this? Like, was it all day exercise, just
We
back to
had
back, break back?
morning. We always started off with exercise. Then you went to breakfast, and then you went into some classes. They always had some administrative, I should say, educational classes. You went into a little bit of tech training, and you go out and do more physical stuff. And you always ended it with details. You know, cleaning this, cleaning that, stuff like that. You know, we had the ends that we had classes. I remember the very first Friday. You know, you used to go in out with your friends and stuff. The very first Friday, we had a class at 8 o'clock at night. When you'd be out with your friends, we were learning how to fold underwear. I remember that Friday.
Did you make any friends at the time during boot camp?
Absolutely. I did make friends. I had one friend of mine who went with me to my tech school, because you go through basic training where you learn with the Air Force thing, and then you go to tech school where they teach you the job that you're going to do for the Air Force, and then you go to your first assignment.
And did you ever get missed code of conduct or any type of? Did they have you do brush on the wall? Did you get in trouble pretty much during boot camp?
I cleaned the bathroom floor with a toothbrush more than on occasion.
You got a couple marks.
Everybody did that. You didn't have to do anything wrong. They just get on your case and it was your turn. So yeah, toothbrushes came in handy.
Was it more emotionally straining or physically?
Initially, it was emotionally, because like I said, the majority of us were 18-year-old brats, mama's boys, you know, and then getting away from mama for the first time, you know, and having to take care of yourself. That was tough. I remember when they turned the lights off at 9 o'clock, we went to bed every night at 9 in basic training, and you could hear the sniffles. Some of the guys were crying. I remember that.
That's funny. What was your specific job and rank once you deployed?
I was a linguist. I studied Vietnamese and North dialect. I was supposed to study some other languages. What happened is this was back in the early 80s. The civil wars, you know, broke out in Nicaragua and El Salvador. Since I spoke Spanish fluently, I was already airborne. I was cross-trained into Spanish. So I left. I was in Okinawa, Japan at the time, and then they sent me to Panama. And I was supposed to go for 30 days, but I wound up staying 174 days. In the Air Force, if you stay 179 or more days, then you actually get assigned to that base. That's the regulations, right? So in 174 days, I had to leave. But I've been gone so long from my other job that they just reassigned me as a Spanish linguist. So I wound up studying 6 different languages.
Okay. Once you deployed, were you a rookie still at the time? I don't know if they specifically or.
Well, yeah, you know, you have to go through with the Air Force. I went through basic training, and I went to language school. I studied Vietnamese there's a school called the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, and they teach like 70 different languages. Mine, when I went there, was Vietnamese North dialect. So I studied that for about a little bit over a year. And then I went to San Angelo, Texas, Goodfellow Air Force Base. That's where they do all the technical intelligence training, because I've been an intelligence officer all my life, even now. And then they teach you on how you're going to use the language. And then you go to survival school. I went to a jungle training where we went out in the woods, you know, and we had guys chasing us and how to live off the land and things of this nature. And then I went to Florida and I studied water survival. We were jumping out of planes and stuff like this, you know, into the water, spending the night in the water and stuff on one-man rafts and stuff like this. And then you went to your first base.
And how many languages did you learn during that at the time once you were deployed?
I was going to be a Far East specialist, so I went into Vietnamese North dialect. I went into some Korean, some Russian, because the Russian you have your Eastern dialects, even within the Russian language. Even Chinese, you have your Mandarin, you have your Cantonese. You know, so we studied all those different languages that we're going to work against.
Okay, and the pay grade was the same.
Well, you know, the pay grade is based initially it's based up to E4. It's based on time and grade and stuff. You do so much time and grade, and then they'll promote you. But after E4 to get the E5, now, then you start testing against your peers, okay, to get promoted.
The benefits wise,
Well, see, the benefits have changed a lot now. When I was one of the last ones where when I retired, I immediately got 50% of the highest pay I got at the time. So I got 50%, and with disability, of course, that went up. I'm 40% disabled because remember I broke my my back.
Yeah.
I broke my shoulder, broke my back jumping out of an airplane. My chute didn't open, and I broke my shoulder falling off a cliff with the training with the Panamanians.
Okay. And how was the special training like during once you jumped off into the water?
It was awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was
Did
fun.
surviving in the ocean?
It was fun. Yeah, it was so cool. Yeah, it's something that if I could, I would do it again. Because it's stuff that you're never going to do. I got to go places. I got to do things and stuff. I worked when I broke my shoulder. We're training with the Panamanians. We were going to the jungle survival school,
Mm-hmm.
and it was me and two Panamanians, and I was the top lead on the rappel off a cliff. And the first guy lost his footing, so there's two of us holding three up, right? And the second guy, well, he couldn't hold it, so he fell off. So now it's me carrying two guys off the side of the cliff. That wasn't going to work.
Oh.
So there we go. Yeah, and I wound up breaking my shoulder.
And was the relationship? How was the relationship during foreigners, soldiers?
The people that I worked with were fantastic. They were happy to see us there. I mean, we had better training. We had better technique. We had better equipment, better facilities, everything and stuff. It's nothing like what you deal now when you're dealing with the Middle Easterners and stuff. Because that has nothing to do with their culture. Is all about their religion. It's very difficult now. Stuff. You kind of hate to say that you can't turn your back on them because you have so many incidents where they have shot people you're working with have turned on Americans.
And what was the most intense training, special training that you learned?
Oh my God!
That you were.
We went through this school, and it was interrogation school, and it was for 5 days, and they put us in these cells. And the first day was you had to stand in your cell for 24 hours. You couldn't sit down. You could, you had a little bucket. If you had to go to the restroom, you had, and you stand there. And I had shorts and a t-shirt. That's all you had on. And the cell wasn't tall enough, wasn't high enough for me to stand straight up. So I was bent over like this, and they had a little hole, and they come through there. And if you weren't standing in that cell for those 24 hours, they would pull you out. They'd spray you down with the water hose, with the cold water hose. They put you back in there, and you'd be freezing and stuff, And when I went through that, during that time period, that was back in the early 80s when the females were first starting to get into some of these jobs. So they went through the same thing and stuff, Everybody got treated the same. And it was tough, because after a few hours, you could hear some of the females were crying. So it was totally something. Some of the guys, same thing, but you couldn't do anything about it. That was pretty tough. That was intense.
Did you? I know you were pretty much sleep deprived. Yeah. And how did they keep you hydrated?
They always, because it was a training scenario. If at any point you could say, you could say stop, right? And then they would stop the training scenario, and then they would come to you and say, okay, what's the problem? And you tell them stuff, and then they would take care of it. And then if they could fix it, then they put you right back in the training scenario. So they could go from being just the meanest guys in the world to taking care of you, and go right back start beating on you again. So that was kind of that messed with your mind. Wait a minute, you were just nice to me. So yeah.
What was going through your mind during that?
What am I doing here?
Is this a mistake?
No, I never thought it was a mistake. I knew that I had talked to some people that had been through it and stuff, and they couldn't tell you because they couldn't give away, what you were going to go through. But they would just tell you, just keep your wits about you, stuff. Understand, that you go through that this is a requirement. Mm-hmm. And, we went through a lot of different things. They put me in this little box, metal box, where I could barely squeeze in there and stuff, and I was in there all just, scrunched up in there, stuff in the metal box. And they come with these, whatever they had, bats or whatever, they were beating on the outside and stuff. And that was, there was a guy next to me who, if you called training stop, then they would ask you one more time. Say again. If you said training stop, they'll pull you out and you were done. You were gone. You were eliminated. And the guy next to me apparently was claustrophobic. And when they started doing that, he went crazy. He was screaming on me. Yeah, he left. I never saw him again. That was tough.
Did did you expect, before we move on, did you expect a lot from the training, the special training? Did you expect that kind of stuff happening, or what did you?
I didn't have a clear idea exactly all I was going to do. I just knew that I've been told it was going to be very difficult, be very trying and stuff, But by that time, I had gone through all the language and all the technical training stuff, that I was determined that no matter what, this was the job that I was going to do. Whatever I had to do, it didn't matter to me. I was going to do this job.
What was your first weapon?
Well, we all shot the M16 originally. Stuff, everybody had to qualify the M16. And we flew gunships. We flew different type of armed platforms and stuff. But basically, mine. And I don't know if you have any questions about this, but really, I was intelligence. So I was never more of a guy that was out in the front line. So I'm the guy that went out there and got the information that they needed and stuff. So we had planes that I flew on and stuff. That we went and did that. I got involved with some other people. I got involved with DEA, with CIA and stuff later on and stuff in my career.
Did you operate any heavy machinery?
I flew on a lot of aircraft, but I was never a pilot. I was a linguist, so we flew in the back. I was an airborne mission supervisor, meaning I was the senior authority on how, when we went out and did the intelligence missions. Those crews belonged to me. I was in charge of them. So.
Like, you flew planes. What kind of planes did you fly?
I flew the RC-135, which is the Air Force's really it's the top of the line. Their intelligence platform. It's if you ever see it, it's unlike any plane you'll ever see. It's got a big nose in front. It's a big old black nose and stuff that sticks out. It's because it's full of antennas in there. All the wires, the wings have wires hanging all over them, and then you have some pods sticking, metal pods sticking from the bottom. Those are for locational stuff, to locate what you listen to, stuff like that. It's a very capable aircraft. It's one of the most amazing aircraft, and flew with crews on the inside. And then I wound up flying. Majority of my time was flying on a platform called Senior Scout, which now has been retired by the Air Force. But it was just basically a box that had the same capabilities as the RC-135. It was just removed. They'd stick in the back of the C-130, tie it down, hook it up, and we go fly our missions.
During flying aircraft, how did you feel about it?
Flying aircraft, I wound up. I got about 9,800 hours flying time, which is it's over a year of my life was spent on those airplanes, flying on those airplanes. Totally. How I feel about it, I absolutely loved it. That's one of the things I missed when I stopped working.
And where did you fly over in the planes? Do you remember where you flew over?
Well, I can't, even now, I still can't speak for the same stuff because everything we did was intelligence gathering and stuff.
Okay.
Since we monitored communications for all the different countries we worked against.
Okay.
But I worked in Central America, South America. After I retired from the Air Force, I was recruited and I was CIA for 7.5 years before I left that. And I work now for the 25th Air Force, which is the intelligence agency for the Air Force.
And did you get to ever ride in a tank?
No, that's all right.
I know, sadly, but I include that. You never know. And then convoys, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. Some stuff, but predominantly, we didn't drive places. We flew there. Yeah. We were Air Force.
Did you drive any military vehicles like wheels on wheels?
Yeah, we are. Everybody was required to obtain a government driver's license, which is different from a regular civilian's driver's license, and it authorizes you to drive different vehicles stuff. But I never drove anything out of the ordinary. Regular Jeeps, regular vehicles and stuff. Nothing special.
Do you know what's your favorite plane?
My favorite plane that I flew in?
Uh-huh.
Actually, I flew on the AWACS as well. The one that's got the big dish on top. Yeah. I flew on that one, providing support to those guys. My favorite plane, I have to say, was probably the RC-135 because I knew that plane. It was such an amazing plane. There's so much equipment in it that you just can't begin to imagine what that plane looks like on the inside.
And then for a vehicle, on wheels, on ground, on land, what's your favorite vehicle you drove? A Hummer. The Hummer looks nice.
We used to love those.
Do you remember the name of your squadron or any?
Which one? Because I mean, I moved to the phone. My basic training squadron was the 3723rd Basic Military Training Squadron. It's now called the 23rd. I took up the 37. I served in the 6990th in Okinawa, the 6933rd in Panama, the 6949th, now the 97th IS in Omaha. The Panama will no longer exist because we no longer have any troops in Panama. And then I was an instructor for the Air Force at Good Fun, the 3485th.
During your squadron, did you know most of them at all, or at least
No, most of them.
by them personally, or did you get to?
The intelligence community is very small, okay? Because there's just not a whole lot of us that qualify for that. And then, and so a lot of people, when I went to language school, there's people going through other languages. I got to know them, and to this day, we're very good friends. I keep in touch with a lot. We have an annual reunion every year. We get together.
And do you remember how many men in that squadron, or specific which one you would like to?
Well, they all varied in size. When I was in Okinawa and stuff, that was a big squadron. There was probably about 600 of us there. But you're talking about your admin people, your logistics. You're talking about your maintenance guys. You're talking about the flyers. Excuse me, all that stuff. So I mean, everybody had different jobs. Stuff. As far as language itself, there's probably about 200 of us there.
Did you see any women in your squadron at all?
It's funny because when I started in the Air Force, there were women in the Air Force, but women were not authorized to fly. Okay, so it was all guys and stuff. Women started flying in and I was young when it started. We got our first female. I think it was been late '87, early '88 when the first female came down to Panama to fly missions with us. And then after that, we started getting a few here and there. Now they're very common stuff. Women hold all the same positions, all the same ranks as the men do and stuff. And they're just as capable. They're awesome.
How did you feel when you first saw your female flying a plane? And how did the squadron feel? Or any
there was no
mad respect when
none,
she?
None at all. Stuff. Matter of fact, they integrated just as well as stuff. And so yeah, there was no friction, there was no problem there at all. We'd already had females that were working with us, but they were working just ground stuff. So when they started flying with us, we knew some of these already. Some of these people, they had a very good. They already proven themselves and stuff. The only thing that you had to do was prove yourself as capable and stuff. Whether you were male or female, that didn't matter.
How was military life entirely overall?
Very structured. Very structured, a lot of discipline, and it just it became a thing where you were held to you were held to a level of stuff, responsibility, and because everybody did the same thing, it just became natural. It wasn't for you were doing anything special stuff. Everybody did it. Everybody struggled. Everybody went through everything stuff. So we did it together stuff. It's very different from civilian life. It's very different from civilian life and stuff, And there was times when I get up, 3 in the morning, go to work. Sometimes I get up at 7 at night, go to work. It all depended on what the mission was, what the requirement was, where I was going and stuff, I don't know of a job, and I say, when I was, I'd go away for 4 months at a time. I'd go away for 3 months, whatever the requirement was in the military and stuff. Is if they told you to go, you went. You didn't question it. You just went because that was your job. Civilian life, you can say, no, I'm not going. You may lose your job, you can say that. In the military, you couldn't say that. So you didn't even think about it, you just did it. It was fun.
Was it hard to, okay, when did you adapt? After boot camp, or?
It was during boot camp when I started, once I got past the mama's boy syndrome and stuff, because I went through it too. I realized, hey, these guys, we were a team. Because that's what they do. When you go in there, you go in all regular, your own clothes. They first thing they take, you make you put all those clothes away and stuff, and they give you civilian, the uniforms, so you all look alike. When you go in there, they call you rainbows because everybody wearing different colored clothes, right? And then when they give you your first uniform, it's that lime green, so they call you pickles, right? And then you start earning, your stripes, your names, and so on and stuff, And at that time, so you all go through, so you become your own family, because you're all going through it together.
During that, did you have a nickname or during boot camp?
Well, the The instructors, they call me dumbass. They
Yeah.
whatever it was, But no particular nickname.
No, not in the squadron. No. Even, no. Sorry about that. I'm pretty sure you stayed in touch with family and friends, but did you lose before you joined? Did you lose friends once you joined the military during that time?
Because of the job that I had, Matthew, I was gone a lot, and we were doing some. I worked in intelligence, so we did some pretty. Now I think about, we talk about stuff, some pretty crazy things and stuff, with our job. So what I did is, because I never wanted my mom to be scared for me, I never told her where I went. So I told my sister, your Aunt Chevy, I told her everything. She was the only one who knew where I was, and I would call her every once in a while and say, hey, I'm okay, I couldn't tell her where I was, but I said, I'm okay, everything's all right. Stuff. And she was the one to tell my mom. So my mom would ask her, but did I lose touch with friends? Yeah, because I just dropped out of sight and stuff because I was just gone. I was all over the world. I went up traveling to about 60 different countries during my 22 years.
And how did you keep in touch with them? By letter?
Well, but when I first started, it was by letter. Stuff, when I got to Kansas, we had lines. I remember that I used to call home from Japan, right, when I got a chance, and it cost me $25 a minute. So I'd call and talk to them for like 3 minutes and say, hey, I'm doing fine, everything's good, and stuff, and I had to cut off because it was expensive. And now, of course, they have internet, they have everything, like right now you can FaceTime, you do all that stuff. We couldn't do that back then. It was all by letter, written letter. A letter would take me about 3 weeks to get home from over there back then.
And during a boot camp or when you got in your living quarters or any type, how was the food like?
Oh, eat all you take all you want, eat all you take. Yep. So it's sometimes it was really really good, sometimes it was really really bad. So, but when you were really really hungry, it was really really good. So, and then of course the rations that they gave us when we were out in the middle of nowhere, I mean, some of that food was like 15 years old, but it was vacuum sealed and it was still good, so we would eat it. For the most part, the Air Force took real good care of it.
Do you know, compared to any of the branches, who had the best food, if any?
And this is not me just saying it because I'm Air Force stuff, but the Air Force regularly wins that stuff.
Yeah.
Because they take care of their people. The Air Force invests a lot of their money in quality of life.
And the barracks living quarters, how was that?
That was pretty fun. Yeah, that was fun and stuff because we used to play a lot of jokes on each other. Where I lived was all the guys and stuff. So we used to play a lot of jokes when they had inspections. And you had your room had to be, spit, shine and stuff. And you had to wear a uniform and stuff. We used to when the commander would go into room to room, he step into the room right next before your friend. We used to have this big bag of like popcorn. And when friend wasn't going in, just throw it all into his room and stuff before he came in and inspected. And the guys would freak out because there's no way they were going to clean it in time.
And in your social life,
that was hard. That was very hard because I was single for a while, and like I said, we're single. You couldn't form any relationship because you were going to be gone for a long time. So it was not even just social life for single guys, but for married guys too. With marriages, a lot of marriages broke up because we were gone for long periods of time, and be gone for sometimes people would like when Desert Storm broke out. Even to this day, we have guys who will leave for a year at a time. A lot of marriages can't survive, because you go for a year, you may come back for a year, and then you got to go back. So in relationship with boyfriend and girlfriend stuff, some of the single guys, the girlfriend, and then we didn't blame stuff, we knew stuff. You're seeing a guy, and he's gonna be gone for 6 months or a year or something, and what are you supposed to do? So a lot of those, that was really tough on a lot of people, guys and girls, because girls deploy too.
Mm-hmm. Did it complicate your morale or anything because of that?
It complicated morale, for a lot of the guys and stuff, because there's a lot of guys who they want to meet somebody or just met somebody and stuff, and I dealt with a lot of younger guys that worked for me, and then the deployment came up, and they didn't question where they had to go and stuff, but they knew what the repercussions were going to be. Most likely they were going to lose that relationship. So the morale was kind of tough at times. But once you got there and stuff, you got busy. When you're deployed and stuff, you work 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. You rarely take a day off because there's really nothing else to do.
What was the weather in the terrain like when?
Well, it all depends on where you went. In Panama, there's rainy season, there's dry season stuff. In rainy season, you can tell the time by when it starts raining. It starts raining about 2 o'clock every day. It lasts for probably about 5 months. In the Middle East, it used to get up to about 125 degrees. I mean, it was just hot, hot, hot. So in the evening, we get down to about 85. Yeah, everybody was freezing because you're so used to all that heat. So it all depends on where you went. Stuff. I lived in Bogota, Colombia. Remember for 7.5 years when I was a CIA. This is outside the military, but the hottest day when I was in Bogota was 73 degrees. And normally it stayed between about 45 and 65. That was beautiful weather.
And what was your favorite terrain and anywhere?
Since I grew up in Texas, I like flatlands. But, the mountains fascinate me. Bogota was up in the mountains, and I used to like it there, but man, you get tired of going up and down those mountains.
Oh, yeah. During that time, did you have any moments where you drank a beer and sat down and be like...
When you went to Bogota, they would tell you stuff, give it about 2 weeks, don't go out and drink anything and stuff, because the air's so much thinner. You're about 9,000 feet up in the mountains. Okay? So you get there, if you drink something and stuff, it's going to affect you a lot more. Now, some guys wouldn't do it. Other guys would say, "Oh, this is going to be cool," and they go and drink a lot of beer because they wanted that effect. So some of the guys would do that, yeah, but it would affect you.
And do you remember any incident where a guy drank too much, or any funny stories?
Oh my God, yes.
Like to share?
Yeah. So many of them. Stuff. Yeah, we there was a lot of times when we like the last night before you return, stuff would come back, stuff you've been gone for a few months. We get to go out to dinner, and some of the guys would go out drinking stuff. There's a lot of times, we had to, get a guy up. We had to physically dress him and stuff because they were completely just out and stuff, and then carry him, put him on the plane and stuff, because they would put his uniform on, get all his gear, pack it all up and stuff because they were just out and stuff, and they were just passed out. So yeah, we had to take care of it. But that's where the family thing came in. We never left anybody behind.
Did they ever get marks or code of conduct when they?
If they went and did something really stupid, yes. Otherwise, we took care of each other stuff. As long as they got on the plane and didn't cause any problems, stuff, then we overlooked it. Just make sure that everybody was okay.
Did you get to ever take any personal things with you?
Like anything?
From any place you travel and like buy things.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of things here in the house. From the different places I went and stuff. Different mementos and stuff. Souvenirs. Collectibles that I bought and things that I really liked. Stuff. One thing I did. Every country that I went to, I bought a decorative plate. That was my thing. Stuff. So I know how many countries I went to because I have about 60 of those plates. So I tried to hang them one time, but I didn't have enough room. So I put it away.
That's interesting.
There's a lot of guys who buy a lot of different things. Some guys would go to some places so often that one guy actually redid the floor to his entire house with marble because we'd go down and he'd buy so much marble, put it on the plane, and bring it piece by piece till he actually redid the entire house. The marble, we bought it dirt cheap. We were going to Italy at the time.
Did you get, like, during that time, did you make new hobbies or anything? Did you obtain new hobbies during that?
I did some base jumping. I learned how to jump off the cliffs. We used to jump off the cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
It was a province called Bocas del Toro in Panama. The cliffs were probably about 3,000 feet, and we used to go jumping off of those cliffs. So that was a lot of fun. Those are the things I did and stuff, but that was probably the one I enjoyed the most, different cliffs that we go find stuff in different countries we went to.
During that time when you served, do you have any battles you had witnessed or were you part of, or?
I told you I got involved by requirements. We're working with the DEA in the drug war and stuff,
Yeah.
And I guess my views on the drugs are biased. So some people say they want to free some of the make them legal. I have two friends that died in the drug war, so I take it very personal. But I don't know. I don't know how else to answer that question.
What did you do for fun when you were off duty?
Uh, Honestly, in the beginning, I used to work out all the time and stuff, and then after a while, I discovered girls. So,
Yeah.
and at that time when you deployed and stuff, you were at places where like when you went to the Middle East stuff, the beginning they gave you more freedom to roam around and stuff. But then when the terrorism started, stuff, this is before Al Qaeda and all this other stuff, when they started doing the car bombs and stuff like this, and they restricted us to base, they actually wound up moving the base out into the middle of the desert and stuff, So you really didn't have anywhere place to go. So that's when we started working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. The whole time we just worked 12-hour shifts every day. And we started going to the gym. They would send us movies. We'd watch movies and pretty much go to the gym. And that was pretty much it. So, because there was no place you could go. You could go out there for 6 months and just stay in the base for 6 months. So you found things that I've always liked to read. I did a lot of reading. I took a lot of classes, online, things like that.
Did you earn any awards or different medals? Any specific medals that you were proud of?
I have 14 air medals that I earned. The air medals is for let me say, they call it gallantry. It's for flying. We had these dangerous missions that we flew and stuff. I can't go into much detail on those, but that we went and got things that we were very, very hard, very difficult, very dangerous to go to and stuff. We went and did those things, so they give us those awards and stuff. I got a meritorious service medal, which was for my overall performance during my time working overseas. Mm-hmm. Stuff. So those are pretty special.
You want a break?
I'm fine.
You're fine. You sure you can go on? I don't.
No, you want a break?
Do you want?
I'm fine. No, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, we'll just edit that part out. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a break. I'll get you back. I'll call you back in a bit, and just give me a sec. I'll go on pause, and we'll edit it out and stuff. But we're gonna go ahead and take a break, okay? Let me go.